The world was no longer a place of cities, nations, or dreams. It was a graveyard. Streets that once carried the noise of markets, children, and life now groaned under the weight of the dead. Skyscrapers stood as hollow monuments, their glass shattered, their steel frames gnawed by fire and decay. The air carried a stench, a choking mix of smoke, blood, and rot that reminded the survivors how fragile hope had become. The pandemic had come without warning. A fever. A cough. A bite. Humanity crumbled in weeks, armies swallowed by the endless tide of the infected. Soldiers fought bravely, but bullets ran dry. Governments fell silent. Planes no longer soared, and ships no longer sailed. The world belonged to the dead. Yet, beyond the ruins, two titans stirred. Far in the jungle, King Kong roared against the encroaching swarm. His body, scarred by battles of nature, now bore new wounds, the jagged claw marks of infected beasts. The undead came at him in waves, snarling with jaws unhinged, eyes pale and soulless. But his strength was unmatched. With every thunderous fist, he crushed dozens, scattering bone and ash into the wind. He fought not for survival alone, but for vengeance for the jungle that had been devoured by the plague. Across the ocean, in a city swallowed by ruin, another force awakened. The Hulk. His green skin burned like emerald fire against the night. He had seen the world of men collapse and felt rage boil hotter than ever before. Zombies poured through the streets, their numbers beyond imagination, but his fists shattered them, each strike a quake that toppled broken buildings. Where men failed, Hulk endured, refusing to kneel before extinction. Rumors spread among the few survivors who still clung to life, two giants still fought the plague. Two gods of muscle and fury who defied death itself. Whispers of hope carried across campfires and radios. If Kong and Hulk unite, humanity might yet survive. The stage was being set. Not for survival of the strongest alone, but for an alliance that could shake the heavens and challenge death itself. The world had fallen, but the war was only beginning. The earth trembled as though it remembered its masters. In the ruins of once great cities and the silence of broken jungles, two roars rose into the air, one primal, one furious, shattering the quiet of death. King Kong emerged from the shadows of his jungle, his colossal frame scarred yet unbroken. Around him, infected beasts, gorillas, lions, even twisted birds attacked without fear, their bodies warped by the plague. But Kong was nature's wrath embodied. With a swing of his mighty arm, he tore through the undead, their bones splintering like dry branches. His chest thundered with a roar that made the skies quake, declaring that the jungle still had a king. Across the ocean, buried beneath rubble and ruin, the Hulk stirred. For days he had wandered, his rage unfocused, crushing wave after wave of the infected. He had tried to protect the last human enclaves, but their screams were drowned beneath the endless swarm. Rage consumed him. Rage not just at the monsters, but at a world too weak to stand. Each thunderous step cracked the streets, each roar sent shockwaves through the air. He was no longer fighting for people. He was fighting because the fight itself was all that remained. Then came the signal. From the sky descended battered drones, the last technology of humanity. They carried a desperate message: Kong, Hulk, unite. Alone you will fall. Together you are our final chance. The voices were weak, choked by static, but the words carried hope. Kong, tilting his head, studied the machines. His instincts knew the truth: this battle was larger than his jungle. Across the ocean, Hulk crushed a drone in his hand but heard the voice before it died. His chest rose with fury, but behind that fury was something unfamiliar: purpose. For the first time since the plague began, their paths were set. Kong pounded his chest, sending shockwaves through the trees. Hulk roared into the sky, his voice shaking the ruins of skyscrapers. The world, broken and bleeding, now turned its gaze toward a single possibility: the meeting of titans. The undead were endless. Humanity was vanishing. But the earth itself seemed to whisper: if Kong and Hulk stood side by side, death might finally know fear. The ocean was black, choked with wreckage, ships overturned, cities along the coast reduced to skeletons of steel and stone. The infected filled even the waters, their twisted shapes drifting, gnashing, swimming toward anything alive. It was here, on a ruined shoreline, that fate drew the titans together. King Kong waded from the jungle, the ground shaking with every step. His fur was matted with blood, his own and that of the infected he had crushed. He carried no weapon but his own fury. His roar thundered across the shore, scattering flocks of infected birds that swirled like black clouds above. From the ruined city opposite, the Hulk appeared. Green skin gleamed in the crimson sunset, muscles flexing like mountains shifting. He was a force untamed, his eyes burning with rage that never cooled. When he saw Kong, his fists tightened. Instinct screamed for battle. Hulk knew no equals, only enemies. For a moment, the world held its breath. Two giants, embodiments of raw power, locked eyes across the wasteland. The infected surged between them in a screaming tide, but neither looked at the horde. Their focus was on each other. Kong roared first, pounding his chest, the sound rolling like thunder. Hulk answered with a bellow, slamming his fists into the ground, shattering the pavement into cracks that swallowed the nearest undead. Waves crashed harder, lightning split the sky. Nature itself seemed to anticipate their clash. Then the horde struck. Thousands of zombies swarmed, clawing and snapping, desperate to drown both titans beneath their endless hunger. Kong swung his massive arm, clearing a path, while Hulk ripped apart entire waves with bone-crushing blows. Yet still they glanced at each other, each testing, each judging. At last, the truth burned clear, neither could defeat the swarm alone. Kong caught Hulk's gaze, then slammed a fist into the ground, not as challenge, but as signal. Hulk snarled, hesitated, then roared his acceptance. For the first time in history, the Titans did not fight each other, they fought side by side. The battlefield trembled as their alliance was forged in blood and fury. Zombies shattered beneath fists, bones rained like ash, and the sky echoed with two roars that promised hope. Together, they were no longer beasts. Together, they were an army. The swarm moved like an ocean of flesh, unending, relentless, crashing against the Titans as though the dead themselves were waves. Their screams echoed through the ruins, a choir of hunger and decay. The ground was lost beneath them, drowned in clawing hands and gnashing teeth. But in the center of the chaos stood two giants, Kong and Hulk, side by side for the first time. Kong roared, a sound so deep it rattled the bones of the undead. He swung both arms wide, fists smashing into the horde with the force of meteors. Entire clusters of corpses exploded into the air, broken and burning beneath his fury. Beside him, Hulk's rage boiled over. His fist slammed into the ground, sending shockwaves across the battlefield. Asphalt cracked, buildings collapsed, and hundreds of zombies were flung like ragdolls. Every strike was pure devastation, every roar a promise that he would not fall. Yet the horde was endless. From the city's hollow towers poured thousands more, undead that had once been soldiers, their armor still clinging to rotten flesh. Some carried weapons, others crawled on twisted limbs, yet all were bound by the same hunger. Kong grabbed a broken skyscraper beam, swinging it like a club. With each strike, the air boomed, zombies shattered, their bodies hurled across the ruined shore. The beam bent and cracked, but Kong fought harder, his chest heaving with rage. Hulk tore the engine block from a wrecked tank, using it as a bludgeon. He spun, smashing through lines of infected, green muscles glowing with sweat and fury. His voice thundered, "Smash!" A cry that cut through the swarm like fire through dry grass. For the first time, the dead hesitated. Not out of fear, they had none, but out of sheer destruction. Piles of broken bodies lay in heaps, their numbers staggering yet thinning. Survivors hiding in bunkers, caves, and shattered towers heard the roars, saw the carnage from afar, and whispered, "The Titans are fighting for us." Then, from the shadows, a new horror emerged. A massive figure, taller than any human creation, twisted by the virus and undead behemoth. Once a kaiju-like beast, now resurrected in grotesque form, its flesh rotted yet its strength multiplied. The swarm parted as it stepped forward, eyes burning white with hunger. Kong turned. Hulk snarled. Their alliance would now be tested against a nightmare greater than the horde itself. The earth shuddered as the creature stepped into the open. Its body was a ruin of muscle and bone, stitched together by infection, a walking corpse of a beast that once ruled the deep. Barnacles clung to its rotting hide, and its jaws, unhinged and broken, gaped wide with a scream that rattled the ruins. The horde fell silent, parting around their champion, as though even the dead recognized their king. The titans faced it together. Kong's chest thundered with roars, defiance shaking the sky. Hulk snarled, green fists tightening until veins bulged like rivers. They had fought armies. They had fought monsters. But this was different. This was death-given form, colossal and endless. The colossus lunged first, its clawed hands slamming into the ground. The impact sent shockwaves across the battlefield, toppling the undead like brittle stalks. Kong leapt forward, swinging his steel beam with all his might, striking the creature's leg. Flesh tore, bone cracked, yet the beast barely staggered. It swung its massive head, smashing Kong into a broken skyscraper. Concrete shattered. Dust rained. Hulk roared and leapt high, smashing his fists down on the creature's chest. The blow echoed like thunder, caving in ribs, but black ichor sprayed, sizzling as it touched the ground. The monster howled, twisting violently, throwing Hulk into the air. He landed in a crater, shaking it off, rage boiling hotter than ever. Together again. Kong rose, blood dripping, eyes burning. He met Hulk's gaze, no words were needed. They charged as one. Kong leapt onto the creature's arm, climbing with furious strength, pounding its rotting flesh. Hulk barreled forward, slamming into its leg with enough force to splinter bone. The colossus shrieked, thrashing wildly. Buildings crumbled beneath its weight. Zombies scattered like insects, unable to approach the storm of battle. The sky itself seemed to darken as the giants clashed, every strike a collision of gods. For a moment, the fight teetered on despair. Kong was battered, Hulk bloodied, the undead king unrelenting. Yet their roars did not falter. Together, they pressed harder, beast and man-monster turned into one unstoppable force. The world had prayed for salvation. Instead, it had been given war. And the war was not yet over. The battlefield was fire and ash. The undead colossus lay in ruins, its body torn apart by the combined fury of Hulk and Kong. The swarm, robbed of their master, had crumbled into dust. For a heartbeat, silence ruled the broken city. Survivors peered from shattered shelters, daring to believe it was finally over. But it wasn't. Kong's chest heaved, his fur torn, blood dripping from deep wounds. Hulk stood opposite him, shoulders rising and falling, gamma fire still glowing faintly in his eyes. Both had fought together to save the world, but now only one truth remained: they could not both stand as its protector. Kong growled low, his primal eyes fixed on Hulk. He beat his chest once, a thunderous sound, declaring dominance. Hulk stepped forward, fists clenched, veins glowing, voice a graveled snarl. Not sharing. The earth trembled as they collided. Hulk swung first, his fist crashing into Kong's jaw with enough force to split the ground. Kong staggered, then countered, grabbing Hulk and slamming him through the skeleton of a tower. Steel bent, concrete shattered, dust billowed. But Hulk rose, roaring, stronger than before. He tore free a steel beam and wielded it like a weapon, striking Kong across the ribs. The great ape bellowed in pain, grabbing the beam, snapping it in two, and hurling Hulk into a crater. The fight raged, each blow shaking the city. Survivors watched in awe and terror. Gods had saved them, but now gods were deciding who ruled. Kong fought with raw instinct, a predator's cunning. Hulk fought with endless fury, every strike building, every wound only feeding his strength. Finally, Kong lunged, fists hammering down in a storm of blows, forcing Hulk to his knees. The ape roared in triumph, yet Hulk's eyes snapped open, blazing with pure rage. With a deafening cry, he seized Kong's arm, twisted, and unleashed a punch so devastating it cracked the sky with sound. Kong collapsed, the ground quaking beneath his fall. He lay broken, his breath shallow, his strength gone. Hulk staggered, bleeding, exhausted, but still standing. He raised his fists and roared, not for glory, but because he was the last one left. The world was saved, but it belonged to Hulk now. The strongest had won. The night sky burned crimson as fires raged across the ruined city. Buildings stood like broken teeth against the horizon, their shadows flickering in the glow of destruction. The ground quaked under the furious stomps of King Kong as he charged through the wreckage, his roar splitting the air with raw, primal force. Across the battlefield, the Hulk answered with a deafening bellow, emerald muscles glistening with sweat and blood under the moonlight. The two titans locked eyes, two forces of nature, neither willing to yield, both born for destruction. But this was no ordinary battlefield. All around them, the undead swarmed in endless waves, shrieking, clawing, pouring from the streets like rivers of decay. Zombies clung to walls, scrambled across debris, and hurled themselves at the giants, fearless in their hunger. Each titan tore through them with devastating ease, Kong crushing skulls with fists the size of cars, Hulk ripping the undead apart with savage swings of his massive arms. Yet as quickly as they fell, more rose from the shadows, a sea of death threatening to drown everything. The clash of giants was unavoidable. Kong swung first, his colossal arm hammering toward Hulk with the force of a meteor. Hulk met it head-on, muscles straining, their fists colliding in an earth-shaking explosion that shattered windows miles away. The shockwave leveled nearby ruins, sending zombies flying like ragdolls through the air. For a brief second, time froze, the strength of gods locked in one brutal moment of power. Then the world exploded into chaos. Hulk lunged, tackling Kong through a crumbling skyscraper, glass and steel raining down like burning meteors. Kong roared in fury, grabbing Hulk by the torso and slamming him into the ground with bone-rattling impact. Dust and smoke rose in suffocating clouds, hiding them from the terrified eyes of survivors watching from the bunkers below. But as they fought, the horde pressed in tighter, endless, and relentless. Zombies swarmed over both titans,